looking at your articles. I don't know how you found so many articles because this week I feel like was so boring for news. Like besides the usual stuff that Trump's been doing, blah blah blah. Like I just feel like the news that I've been seeing is just the most boring stuff. The new Snow White trailer came out.
Yeah.
I won't lie to you, Mom. It looks actually kind of decent. It looks decent, but I know it's going to do super poorly with that weird looking girl. I forget what her name is.
Is this the one with the libtard who's
Yeah.
trashing it left and right?
Yeah, Gal Gadot's the only one that really makes this movie like worth watching, I guess. But the comments for it are hilarious. Like I forget the story of Snow White, but everyone's like, "This is the one sign I'm rooting for the apple, right? Isn't the apple like the bad? Right? She's not supposed to be the apple or whatever." So that's gonna do very poorly. I know that the new Captain America movie is like mediocre at best, but I know it's good, but it's not great from what I hear.
Yeah, that's what I heard also. Mike forewarned me. It's not going to be good, Mom.
It's not going to be good.
Yeah.
I have no interest in watching it. There's very few things that I've been watching, especially on TV. I'm trying to catch up on shows while I have some time.
There's not too many movies out. You're right. I saw those two. I think there's something called The Gorge coming out. I don't know. Nothing. I wouldn't go to the movie for anything other than like a Top Gun that's worth sitting in the theater. But even the stuff that's out, like I think Wicked's out on Who's What's It's Apple TV.
That's
and all
the
that
one with Ariana Grande and that black lady, right?
Ervo.
Which I hear is good, but it's also like a woke mess, to my understanding. So
yeah, your cousin liked it, but I don't know. I when I said I had to pay for it, I'm like, no, I can wait a little longer.
Nowadays, like you can make a home theater pretty easly now. Remember, those used to be a luxury. Like that one kid that had the theater in his house. It's like, whoa, Dad's doing well. And now it's like,
now we see them in houses, and we want to. I'm like, oh, don't need that. I'm not paying for that square footage. I don't need that.
Turn it into something better. Like my projector. Once I hooked that thing up to a nice speaker system, I basically just created an IMAX theater, a personal IMAX theater.
And you can stream from it, which is nice.
Yeah, I could do everything from it. I was just watching some stuff before.
I tried today to get the iPad onto the TV downstairs.
Good luck.
Even bought a $20 adapter for it, a lightning to an HDMI. This freaking thing would not work. Would not do it. I finally had to hook up the Apple TV and do screen sharing through that. It would work that way. And that's all I need. Nobody's using it. But, okay, so imagine I get the Apple. There's no plug. How the hell do we lose the plug to it? So now I've got to dig out the TV in the family room, go behind there, which is like it's like a forest.
Has anyone been back there in like 20 years? I don't think anyone's opened that back box.
It was frightening, but I'm like, why would it be here without the plug? Same thing with the Roku. So we had both the Apple and the Roku, just a whole forest of cords behind there. So I pulled out to get at the cords, not to bore you, but we have an old VHS DVD player under there.
No one's used.
The front panel breaks off of it or was falling off of it. I pulled that out. All these wires behind it. We don't even use it. I just yanked it all out and said to Dad, I'm getting rid of it. If you, for some reason, have to watch a DVD CD, you can watch it in the one upstairs. It's not falling apart. You're never going to watch it in the family room.
Everything else is everything's burnt to discs anyway, so there's really no point to burnt off discs anyway. Like you took all like the old family videos and stuff. So to your point, there's literally nothing worth watching. Like CDs are gone, discs are gone, except for people that like physical copies. But that's
and worst case, we only need one player. I don't need 3 of them, and this one's falling apart. So it's huge too. Nowadays they make them so small. This thing is huge.
Yeah,
like it's garbage.
Nowadays you just put it into your computer anyway, and then just run an HDMI, and voila, you got.
I know. I'm like, why are we keeping this? We don't even have. We threw out all our CDs anyhow. So that was my big project today. That took me like an hour to try and get this stupid ass thing to work. I'm trying every HDMI in the back of that TV. I could not, and I don't know why.
Well, the other issue is your iPad, right? Is not going to you can't charge it at the same time, correct? Unless you have an adapter that has a charge pass through.
Right.
So
I can't.
The beauty of having
movies. I just wanted to do. I have a subscription through July for Bodi, B-O-D-I, or Body, I guess they pronounce it, which has all these exercise programs and all these services on it. And I used to have, she was great, Andrea Rogers. She does like a Pilates workout. And before I blew out my knee, I liked using. She was good. It was like dancing Pilates. So I said, "Oh, let me try and put it on the TV so I can do it down here in the basement after I use the."
I do have to point out, you just said blew out your knee, like like you're this professional athlete.
Yeah, I should.
Mom's like, I absolutely blew out my knee.
Tore my meniscus. Let me bring it back. They all our subscribers know already.
Did you do it playing tennis or something? I forget what the meniscus. It's been so long.
I have no idea.
Blew it out like she was doing sports. This was just like in the kitchen.
No, I think it was probably playing tennis, but it was no specific injury that I felt. The first time I did it, I felt something. This recent one, I didn't. But I have an interesting theory. Months before that, I was in the laundry room on a step stool, and I slipped. Is it like the step stool flipped out from underneath? You were home at the time, I think. And I wound up really injuring my shin. Like it was down. I don't want to sound like, but it was down to the bone.
I actually do remember that. I remember how. Yes. Yeah, you really.
It was a mess, and I feel like it was very sore to the point where I'm like, I did something to it. Now, I don't think I broke my bone or anything. I have no idea. I just felt like the integrity of that leg was already in question. And then playing tennis, I think that's what did it. I think having injured my shin might have put some pressure or might have, forced me to do something that zigzagged. That's my theory, for what it's worth. I think it was a very busy news week. The thing was, it was eclipsed by all the people squawking about DOGE all the time. That's why. There was an accident in Munich, or not Munich. Was it Munich? Yeah, where another person ran into a bunch of people with their car.
Yeah, saw that.
Nobody heard anything about that. There's a transgender shooter down in, was it Texas, I think? One of the schools down there.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. There's no, interesting news. To me, that's not interesting because, unfortunately, it's happening so often now where I'm kind of numb to it. Yeah. I'm like, this is just another one.
Hostages being released. Did you see the 3 hostages
That's a big one.
Out?
Yeah, that's true.
As gaunt as can be, the president's absolutely right. What did they do to these poor people? They must have starved these 3 men almost to death.
No, I didn't see a picture. How
gaunt they were when they came out? Yeah, it's unbelievable. The women even said that it was poor, but they started feeding them right before they were being released, so they wouldn't look like they were starved. The men, no, just let them go. And then another one was released today, I believe, by the 12 noon cutoff from the president. Big news, but nobody cares because it's Trump,
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Well, what about Netanyahu? What happened with the ceasefire? Is that still tomorrow? The ceasefire?
No, it was 12 noon today. They released a few hostages, including the Americans, so that appeased Trump. He said he will back whatever Israel wants to do about the 12 o'clock deadline. So whatever Israel decides, if they didn't follow the demands with the 12 o'clock release. I don't know if Israeli prisoners were released or if they hit the number they were supposed to. I don't know. Wow. But anyhow, I'm just not shocked, but it's just finding interesting how many Palestinian prisoners they have that they release. They must have grabbed a whole bunch of them when they stormed these different towns, because they'll release 10 Israelis and 393 Palestinians get released in exchange. It's a big chunk each time.
I wanted to ask you, because this was kind of big news this week. You and I talked about it on the phone, but Trump's idea to rebuild Gaza as like this casino place, like this nice. Well, what's your thought process on that? Because I've seen probably 50% of people say, "Why are we putting money into this place?" The other 50% is, "Oh, that's a great idea." So where are we on the fence on this one?
Well, similar to Ukraine, I really don't care about that part of the world, but I care more about fixing our country first.
Right. Don't worry about it.
But I understand why he did it. I mean, it's a smart thing to do because now you got buy-in from all the other countries over there that do have the money to do it. You've got Jordan, you've got Egypt, you've got the what's his name, BDM, the Arabs, right, with the billions of dollars, Dubai and all that stuff.
The UAE.
Now you've got a reason for them to put money into that area if they so choose. So I see what Trump is doing. He wants to turn it around and make it something that people want to put money into. And when you put money into it, you have a say, right? You get to control the area a bit. And you have a common goal, which is to make money, to get paid back. It's not, oh, Israel and land and you must leave. It's more, okay, how do we make this work, people? And if you don't get on board, get out. So I think it's a great way of giving the people of that area an alternative to just tribal leadership with Hamas. Could be more of a controlled economy, and like anything else, give people work. People need to work. They need to have industry. They need to be functioning and contributing to their society, not just protesting all day long.
My problem with that, not so much problem, but the odds of, first off, you're not going to be able to do that in his 4 years. That's just a matter of fact. You're not going to be able to build up all. So what happens when he gets out? Someone else comes in, say it's a Democrat, let's just hypothetically say that. What are the odds of that getting finished? Like, I feel like we'd put a lot of money into something that's just going to get reverted the next time a new president comes in.
Well, here's the thing. We may not have to put a lot of money into it anymore.
Oh, that's what you're saying, because at that point it'll be...
Because now, too many times we go in and we have to build things up again. Why is that our responsibility, right? Why is it the U.S.? And I think, and this will tie into one of my articles with J.D. Vance, the U.S., or at least under Trump, he's saying, we've had enough of this. That doesn't mean he isn't going to say, similar to over in that area, hey, yeah, sure, the U.S. is interested. Let's put money in this area. Well, now you got buy-in because you got a major world player saying, instead of sending missiles and guns and whatnot over here to Israel, whatever, why don't we actually invest in these communities? Stop feeding into what these individuals want, which is constant strife and turmoil. That's what they want. Israel doesn't want it, but that's what they all seem to want. Just constantly picking fights over there because somebody else is funding those fights, right? All it's costing them is their people. And these tribes, they don't care about that. They act like they do, but they really don't. So Trump is putting a different spin on it. Let's turn it into a luxury place. And now you have buy-in. Because if he went to all these other countries and says, oh, we need to really build up Gaza. We really need to, build the schools back up and all this stuff. What's in it? They're not going to do that. Right. They already fund this area indefinitely and don't really want to anymore. Jordan, Egypt, all those other areas. Now, all right, here's another spin. How about you put money into it, but now you got to get something out of it. Let's turn it into something that'll make money. Tourist location. They'll build it up, put an infrastructure in, right? And the U.S. has been very good about doing that. Look at Japan. Look at Tokyo. That place was, people remember bombs going off, right? The atomic bomb. Well, thanks to our money and others, we built those countries up again.
Nothing better than bombing someone and then building up their place. That's the ultimate power play. Bombing and then building it up for them.
Trump's now talking with Putin, right? And he's going to bring an end to this mess. And Zelensky's putting his 2 cents in, even though he wasn't invited to this portion of the talks. But you watch, we'll be putting money into Ukraine. The United States will be forced to put money in.
Yeah, we knew that was going to happen, though. We were going to be the ones that rebuild Ukraine.
But I'm not so sure in that case. Now, I wanted nothing to do with them in the first place. And I didn't really care about that war. I was watching Batya Ungar talking about it, and she's absolutely right. Right now, they're negotiating for 3 things. That is exactly what was on the table 2 years ago that started this war. Right. 1 million dead men later, we're right back where they started. It was just a colossal money siphoning expenditure that's just wound up costing close to 1 million lives. It's disgusting. But here we are. And you know what? How much was the U.S. government prior to Trump involved in this and creating this mess? Maybe, not me personally, not you personally, but maybe the U.S. owes it to that country and the people that died over this senseless war to put some money into it. However, up until now, before DOGE got in there and exposed all the money that we have wasted over the years, I'm a little bit more lenient. Yeah, I'm a little bit more lenient to say, all right, give them some money, but no more.
It's wild how I was going through articles before for the news. All of them are like upset about the IRS getting layoffs and all this. It's like, well, hold on, we just saw proof that these people are literally robbing us blind, right? By definition, robbing us blind. And now they're upset that, again, it's just because Trump's doing it and Elon's doing it that they're upset about it. They're upset that Trump wants to take away the federal income tax.
Yeah.
It's very strange. It's like, so more money in our pockets. I'm sure there's a drawback. Don't get me wrong. But it's funny how media spins it, not so much that they care about whether or not they make money. It's just Trump did it so bad.
No, you know what's even more interesting? And I'll say not even the media, but mostly the Democrats. I'll say some Republicans are very quiet, maybe by design. But the Democrats they are literally standing there saying, it's so wrong that this person's in there. It's wrong what he's doing to have access.
It's like, hey, he got voted in.
No, I'm talking about Elon Musk.
Oh.
Not one of them has said, which would make sense to me, maybe it's wrong he's in there, but we need to talk about what he's finding.
Yeah.
Oh, they don't want to talk about that. So this is a deflection. So, understand what's going on here. They're going to talk about Musk endlessly because they don't want to talk about what he's finding.
Well, it's kind of like the Snowden incident, right? When Snowden found all those documents that exposed the U.S. government, and then he finds all this stuff, and then he has to flee Russia because he's seen as a terrorist, even though he unearthed so many things about our politicians, I guess, but then nothing ever came of it. So it's like, I don't know what came of Snowden because that was kind of before I got into politics. I must have been in high school when that happened.
He was over there, and he was waiting for a pardon that never came. Blah blah blah. But also, you talk about the IRS. Okay, does anybody not recall what was a year ago? He wanted funding for 84,000 more agents.
Yeah.
For an organization that we now know has been losing track of or wasting our money.
Yeah.
And they had the audacity to say they have to pay for more. And we voted on a budget to put in 84,000 more IRS agents. Well, isn't it laughable? They're on my list of agencies that have had to cut away.
Yeah. And they're like, oh no, we're all going to lose our jobs. It's like, well, yeah, you've been screwing, not all. I mean, of course, not everyone's a bad person, but like, yeah, your department sucks. You're stealing from people. I told you and my grandfather, there's a hearing from last week, I believe it was, where this guy's holding a bag of bolts for $10. But for some reason, we paid for that $10 bag of bolts $90,000. So what happened to the other $90,900 or whatever it is? Where's that go? For one bag of bolts. It's like, oh, this is how we're spending our money. So now we have the proof of what the past generation has been talking about in government, and now they're upset that they got exposed. Yeah. So,
and Treasury doesn't even have the proof in the sense that they just have outright fraud. There are no entries. They don't even know what nuts and bolts it goes to, based on your definition. Yeah. It's just literally money going out the door with no coding whatsoever. And then when people turn around and say, did you realize this was yes. Do you think there's fraud? Oh, absolutely. But that's what we're supposed to do. We just send it out the door with no accountability. And we talked about this. I think the biggest threat to our government right now when they see Elon Musk is not him per se. Yeah. It's people. It's what he represents. He's AI. He's the future. He's where we're going. He's not somebody you're going to say, oh, you can't have accountability. Bullshit, you can have accountability. You have AI. This is as simple as 5th grade math. You just choose not to do it for a reason. Yeah. And as you expose where this money is going, like ISIS training camps, we're funding that.
Yeah,
we're funding that. Why? Okay? And even that, I'm not even sure it's 100%. Probably a portion goes there and then it gets kicked back to some entity here. And we're starting to peel back the layers of the onions of who these entities are. And that's the point that and what Musk is doing right now is very frightening to the establishment, because your generation going forward are not going to tolerate not knowing where that money goes.
Well, you said it best. Like, we've been so scared of this $34 trillion deficit that we've had, when in reality, it might not be as much as we thought. It might not be that high. It's just that once we cut all the unnecessary spending, which it seems like Musk is doing, I think that $34 trillion debt is going to go down real fast, to the point where I don't think Trump's going to have to rely on crypto to fix a lot of the problems that the U.S. has. Like, I think you and I are going to disagree on crypto now, which is kind of ironic considering like 5 years ago, it was probably the flip side. Like, it was flipped around. But like, I don't ever want to see crypto as the main U.S. dollar. I'm sure there's some crypto mogul out there watching going, how dare he say that about crypto? But no, I find crypto to be such a joke now.
Before you even move into that, I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you that that's the answer, because it doesn't matter it doesn't matter what currency platform you're using if you're using it for fraudulent means. Okay? Whether it's crypto, US dollars, or whatever, or bank loans for that matter. You know, you could do lending fraudulent.
Well, and then we could talk about the hearing last week for the debanking, which we know a little about, but like, I mean, we just had proof that these Federal Reserves were attacking people's bank accounts, right? Locking bank accounts.
Right. They're locking out individuals based on, we're not sure what, but originally it was crypto based. Anybody involved in crypto, and not giving them access to
political beliefs.
Cutting them off. Well, that's what they're trying to get to. Was it just crypto, or was there something more underlying their constitutional rights by doing this? But you know, that's part of it, but that's a side issue, because we're still talking the bigger picture here. All DOGE is doing is uncovering.
Right.
All the president can do is put a halt to things. Congress needs to go in and debate this and say, listen, we need to put in a new system. Now, DOGE can make the recommendations. The president can implement it, I believe, in the executive branch. But if this is far-reaching and goes outside of his purview, right? Now you have to have Congress involved, because you got to start passing some laws to make sure this doesn't happen again. And that's where the younger generation comes in, because, I mean, my generation, most of us will say, hey, we're not tolerating this anymore. But as I told you, we come the pencil ledger generation. We weren't born into digital computer-based like you guys.
Right.
Even I understand now, there is no reason, based on what the debanking people have experienced. They know the dollar they spent 2 years ago at a corner bodega in Washington, D.C. Don't tell me you lost track of $150 billion that was meant to go to soldiers' foods. You know, that was one of the other articles
MREs and stuff.
Right. This doesn't fly anymore. So it's going to be very difficult for all governments, frankly, not just because we're not the only corrupt government, obviously. It's going to be very difficult for us in the future. I don't know how you justify, we're going to send another $1 billion to Ukraine, but we don't know where it's going. That should not, for your generation, that should not fly anymore. That should be an absolute, I will vote you out of office if you do not find out what the entry is, what dollar amount it was, where it went, and whose account it went into.
To your point, any future president after Trump is going to have to be someone that's aware of the times, that people can track, like just normal people like me can track where money goes just based on following the paper trail. It's not that hard nowadays. So
it's not the president, Chris, because they're always going to want to confiscate. They're always going to want to hide it. That's the nature of a leader, whether you're a tribeman or all the way up, because you have corruption.
Well, yeah.
It's up to the people that vote that person in to say, no, that's my priority. Because they knew it in the Biden administration. They knew it in the Obama administration. They knew it in the Bush. This has always been how it's been. And we've always said, we got to cut taxes. We got to do this. We got to cut spending. Oh, no, we need more money, no more money. They knew exactly what was going on and how it was set up, right?
Right.
Or nobody bothered to look because it was easy. How easy it's for me to funnel money into my granddaughter's bank account. Nobody knows, right? The burden is now going to be put on the American people to not tolerate that from the next president and your representative and your senator, because our eyes have been opened. And they've done this before with us. I told you, Mitt Romney years ago tried to do this whole government waste program. I think Rand Paul's father, Ron Paul, tried to do it. But that was back in the pencil and ledger days.
Yeah.
We're past that now. And now we're in a whole new area. We got AI looking at it, not even just computerized.
Yeah.
Well, AI
they'll red flag something if there's even something a little off.
And that's what we need legislated. and they're not going to like it. Our government's going to fight tooth and nail to convince the citizens, no, we don't need that. It's going to be too expensive. It's going to be too time consuming. It'll be a national security risk to actually, I mean, there's some people actually saying you can't cut all the funding because it's a national security risk from that USAID.
It's amazing how hard they're trying to stop Elon from finding the secrets of what our politicians, right and left, have been doing for the last 50 plus years. But what's strange to me is that the news organizations are so in on it, you know? And it's not even because they know what's going on. It's because they've been so ingrained to just despise everything that Trump does.
No. Remember, Politico got a chunk of money from USAID.
Oh, did they? But even then, they probably don't know.
So, Christopher, that now they have to go get subscribers because they might not be able to keep running. NPR was getting a chunk of money. I am sure all these other news organizations have been subsidized by our tax dollars through some program. That's why they're screaming.
Right, but I mean that they're paid to look the other way. They probably don't know what's going on. Like, they probably can't point fingers as to who did what, who did this, but they're definitely paid huge chunks of money in donations or contributions, as Bernie Sanders says. That's my new favorite word, contributions.
Contributions, yeah.
But I think that, I truthfully think that, okay, CEO at the whatever level, he's probably doing certain things, but like, I feel like the just normal employee writing these journals are just so ingrained to just, oh, Trump did it, so it must be bad.
I mean, that's probably true, but now don't they look like fools when they're finding out that the federal government has been subsidizing their
Don't all journalists look like fools nowadays?
Well, Rachel Maddow was on babbling about something, that Trump did, and it turns out it was approved by Biden.
Yeah, she's not the smartest of ladies. She's struggling to keep her job.
Believe it or not, she's one of the quote-unquote smartest ones out there in terms of spinning that.
They also said that about AOC, and that turned out very poorly.
Well, it's that side of the argument. They don't have much, and that's why I say, if you're smart, anybody on either side, and you're thinking about it, and you're saying, why are they more concerned about how they're doing it? Which, if you think that's bad, if you think, and maybe you can make the case, what are these young people? What do they have access to? I mean, if they can stay, if they're being told to stay in their lane and they're not allowed to go into certain areas that might be, personal, and they're not entitled to that information, whatever, that those guardrails need to be in place. I agree. But what's more interesting is what they're discovering, and nobody on purpose, other than certain Republicans, and the president, are standing up and saying, hey, wait a minute, it's bad what he's doing, but let's put that aside for a minute. We've been ripping off taxpayers here. Yeah. We need to do something about it. Or let's see how long it takes before they actually start saying that. Somebody on the left, even the media people, they're not going to want to admit that, because you're killing the gravy train here. They are exposing the gravy train that's been around for, dare I say, centuries, maybe not, or how long we've been, 200 years, at least since the 1900s. This gravy train has been going, and now it's on auto drive. And it's taken an AI to come in and say, hold on here. Even the people running it don't know what's going on. Yeah. I mean, it's huge. I don't think people even understand yet. They're just getting information right now. And yes, it's having an effect because, I sent you that article. Virtually pink slips are going out at FEMA, the Interior Department, the VA. That's the one about the reductions.
Oh, the purging?
Yep.
Here are the federal, The Purge.
Yeah.
There's a movie about this.
So all these, and some of them were self-purging before DOGE got in there. But yeah, all the major ones are taking a hit. The IRS has already said they're letting some people go. After we shelled out money for 84,000 agents that supposedly they needed so they could go through every dime in my tax return. And at the same time, they're sending out money that nobody's even checking.
Wow.
That
Customer
should
financial
burn
protection.
you as a citizen.
The CFPB. What are they doing? Oh, geez. God, Discord's being such a problem today because you are blurry as hell for me.
Blurry, and I was just echoing on my end.
Oh, it's fine. Consumer Finance Protection Bureau. Is that the FDCIB stuff?
No, that's the CFPB, and they've actually been very much involved in the debanking of people. So there's a few of them busting their humps, from what I understand from the CFPB, because it's existential. They're going to get cut left and right unless they start proving their worth.
Department of Education, we watched that one go down. Thank God.
Yeah.
I don't even know what happened to that one, but like, I don't know. What did they do with the Department of Education now?
They're going to break it up, I hope, and get rid of it. So Linda McMahon is coming in.
Let me ask, Mom, what's the goal of, like, some of these, like, I hear Department of Education. What is the goal of the Department of Education? Is it literally education?
So what they did, they took the education program and they federalized it, and they took money. And by doing that, they felt, I think was it under Bush? It might have been Bush who set this up. No, it was early, before Bush. I forget who set up Department of Education. The goal was basically to influence and improve education by the federal government getting involved in giving grants and loans and whatnot to various states to influence a better education in each of those states, right? Right. Now, that's just a general thing. It does a lot of other stuff. And that's where you get your Title IX in sports and stuff, right? Through the education.
That's what they do.
All right. So basically, as we've learned from the president, we've been dumping more and more money into the Department of Education and giving out funds to schools. Individually, we're paying a fortune for teachers, right? We spend the most on students than any other, what's the word, first world country, if you will, of all the major countries out there. And our scores were ranked like 47th. Ooh. And they keep going lower and lower and lower. Our country did better when the states ran their own school districts, right? So by taking the funds away, now states will have to fund their own schools, right? And they'll have to make the investment in themselves, but also allow some states to say, hey, you know what? We don't want the garbage that the federal government kept pushing in there. We don't want these special, all of the DEI stuff. We don't want to be indoctrinating kids. We don't want them wasting time on that. Or we want to bring back honor classes or regions classes. A lot of states got rid of that because Department of Education decided, oh, that's racist and it's not fair to kids. So the states can make up their own mind or decide by their citizens what they want to do and how they want to educate each kid. But they also have to fund it themselves, which is fair. Your money, your say, right? And it just allows the federal government to not be involved in that so much. Let the states decide, because since we put on the Department of Education and brought it on, we haven't gotten better. Education has not gotten better in this country. Our scores are the lowest they've ever been.
Right. See, the problem when you like give us some information on certain things, like the 150. Now you don't really have to go through the article because you've already nailed it. So
yeah, and we don't have to go through the whole thing anyhow. Yeah. But this, well, I was first outraged at the thought, and you know me with the military. I don't have any. I'm clueless as to what these people do. I assume you go in the military, you get fed, you get clothed, you get housing. It's the least we could do, especially while you're serving. Servicemen get taxed $490 a junior serviceman for food every month. It's a payment system. They take it out of their paycheck. It's like a food tax.
Right.
And it's applied towards their food. Now, the average salary for these junior
30. Wow.
It's $30,000 a year. And on top of that, you're paying $490 for your food. Turns out it wasn't even all going to their food. And when you look at what some of these people were eating, it became like a catch-22. The food was terrible, so the guys weren't using it.
Yeah.
And the women. The men and the women weren't using it. So they couldn't budget the food anymore. They were buying less food because they had fewer people. And then they were down to this. Lima beans and a piece of toast was one of the meals, right?
That's disgusting. And some milk.
Okay. Ugh. And these are all the ones that were affected and how much money. I go back to, again, your generation. How is this tolerated? How hard is it to collect the money? And by the way, why are our servicemen paying for their food?
Yeah, that should be part of the military budget, right? I would assume.
God, yes. Of all the things we pay for. So think of those bag of bolts from the Department of Defense, right. Okay? $96,000 for $10 bolts. And we're gonna ask somebody who makes $30,000 a year to pay for his food. And I know from other people they have to pay for their uniform.
The most expensive thing on there is that tray. Look at this, the tray's nice.
Yeah.
Even has a sticker in the center.
I mean, and when they would talk to some of the servicemen, the food wasn't that good. They were going to eat there. So then they started doing like a cantina type thing, or what do you call it? Grab and go type sandwiches for them if they wanted that. But there's also the other side of it, and now we're knowing these processed foods are not that great for anybody. And is it fair for our military? I mean, that kind of money, give them steak.
Yeah.
Give them a steak dinner, potato.
Well, I remember like when you look at Marines, like the big jack Marines, the food that they were eating was like just protein, just hard, like big carbs, big everything, just loaded. And then I look at that and I'm like, oh, that's not what that should be.
I don't
There's
know
it's just lima beans.
You know, I gotta believe if it's happening in the Army, it's happening in the Marines, and it's happening in the Navy. You know.
Then how are they so goddamn big? That doesn't make sense. I have to think, or maybe I'm thinking Navy SEALs or those kind of high level Marines.
Well, I just think in general, I'd like to have Pete Hegseth's ear and the president's, because I think they would agree. Why is our military? I call it the Spartan Project. The Spartan Project. Our military should, while they're serving, they shouldn't have to pay for anything.
I agree.
Because obviously we have more than enough money going out of the treasury with no entries in it, that if I'm giving billions of dollars to Ukraine, can we peel off maybe $1 billion or $2 billion and feed these guys and give them good food, and women, and give them good food?
You know, maybe
it's unbelievable to me.
What we should do, because you know what everyone keeps asking me, Mom, to do the. Remember we, like a long time ago, we promised to do that mukbang. Remember when we picked a restaurant and everyone they wanted us to yeah. Maybe instead we get some soldier MREs and we try those out and see how bad they actually are. So this is what they take out in the field. How is the MRE better than the cafeteria food?
They probably make them pay for the MREs too.
Probably, yeah. I'm curious. I've always wanted to try one, but I know I would not be happy with myself if I know I'm gonna be severely like, you know, it's kind of like the commercials, right? Like, oh, it looks so good, but then when you actually have it, you're like, oh, this looks like someone puked in my cup.
Well, and let's be honest, we now know these are all prepared packaged foods.
Yeah.
They have all sorts of preservatives and stabilizers in them. Not to mock this company, but I think that's just the nature of it. And now we know just how bad that is for somebody. So someone on a tour of duty for a couple of years eating that stuff, they're not getting the best nutrition. Who knows what it's doing to them? I mean, it's not helping the kid and getting it from the food store either. But
yeah,
that's the best we could do.
My question is, Mom, like, why do they sell MREs to the public? Like just to try, like, you know, or that one Marine that just wants to, like, he couldn't adapt to real life again after 20 years being in the military, so he can only eat MREs.
You know, I don't know why, other than for people who are survivalists or people who camp
Right.
and do what, you know, they might use
That's
this type
probably
of
it.
stuff. You know, when we had Y2K, everybody was freaking out, so they all had shelters, and you could buy prepackaged foods and be prepared for an emergency. Like if you had a hurricane, Chris, like in North Carolina, people could use this.
I told you about the show Extraction.
Yes.
Right. I gotta tell you guys about this one. So these people take their kids or a family member. So it's one family member in the woods in British Columbia, and their two parents are like a best friend or whatever. And the best friends and family can hear whoever's out in the woods, but they can't hear you. So I'm trying to put this in the word. Strongly recommend you watch it. It was tough because I'm watching these so there's games every day that the parents have to do, essentially. I'm just going to say parents and kids just to make it simpler. So the kids out in the woods, the parents have to do these games to earn supplies for their child. And it's just kind of hilarious not hilarious, but in fact, I would even say it's tough to watch because you see these parents who are literally watching their kids fall apart in the wilderness, all for $250,000. Mom, would you watch me fall apart for $250,000?
You got some time before you're gonna fall apart, Chris.
Mom's like, I would let you fall apart for $10,000. But no, it's a really interesting show, but it was really tough to watch because you have the younger parents who they got the speed, the agility to kind of quick think. And then there was this one kid whose parents, a little older, probably in their 60s, 70s, and they have a minute to get all this stuff in the box, and that's going to be the resources that the kid gets for the day. or for however long he needs it. And there were no tools left. They were too slow to get in the box, so they got the kid nothing. And I was just like, oh, can you imagine being a parent that let your kid down?
Explain that to me, because maybe the parents are just not firing all cylinders. You have to put everything in a box, and it has to be able to close.
Yeah, so they give you a box.
Yeah.
They give you a box probably a little bit bigger than an iPad. It's probably about like the size of a MacBook, right?
Okay.
There's shelves all around in this room, right? And everyone goes in one at a time. I forget if it was alphabetical order. You got to watch this show with Dad. You have to.
Wait a minute. A MacBook is thin. What are you talking about?
I mean box-wise, like size-wise. It's probably about the size of a MacBook, and then it's probably like a foot tall, not even 6 inches tall.
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to I
gotta fit everything in that box
that you can
to get it. That you can
in a minute. You only have a minute to grab off all these shelves in a room.
Right. Isn't
Anything.
the kid guaranteed something if you get a few things in
that
box?
If you can't, yes. But if you don't close the box, so like technically you could close the box in 30 seconds, but then you'd waste the other 30 seconds. The problem is they tried to stuff it. They overestimated it. They put they couldn't get the latches on, and then time ran out. So they're 28-year-olds like, Mom, Dad, where's my resources? And the parents are just like,
they weren't smart enough to pull stuff out of the box so they could close it and latch it.
They didn't have the time. So what they did was there was like a canteen, and they put stuff in the canteen, put the canteen in, and then they realized like they couldn't fit the sleeping bag. They couldn't fit everything else because the sleeping bag's like this big, which takes up probably a good third of the box.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna have to watch this because I gotta decide if these parents are just morons too. Yeah. Maybe they purposely pick some parents that don't figure it out. I don't want to judge because I haven't seen it yet.
A lot of times people, they're trying to look for specific things. So they're told like there's knives in there's food, there's MREs and stuff. They don't tell you how many. So if you're the last parents to go, let's say there's 10 contestants, but there's only 5 cans of food, 5 knives, and 5 fire starters. So all of a sudden everyone's like, oh shit, there's no knives left because the families before me went. What do I give my kid? And then you have to, it's almost like you go in expecting something, and when that's not there, like they have to almost rework their strategy. So yeah, it was tough to watch.
I'm going to tell you why you would do well with us for that. I don't know if you remember, could have been 10 years ago, your father was in the contest with the warehouse.
Yeah, I gotta ask, I've never actually asked Dad what happened in that warehouse. So you tell the story. You tell the story.
So it's like a Costco or a Sam's place, whatever. You get a cart, and
you gotta tell people how Dad got into this, though, right? Dad got as like
an award. He got as a salesman. He won this award, so he met with other people that were in sales, and this was their competition because they used to do these rah-rah events to build camaraderie. But you also get to keep the value of what you get, right, or not necessarily the item. I forget how it worked out. So you push the flatbed cart, the things you get at like Home Depot.
It's a flatbed.
It's like a flatbed. And you go and you got to fit. God, I'm trying to remember where they might have been a team. Might have been 2 of them. So one pushes, one pushes and the other one puts it on the shelf. But you got to find the high value items that are small to fit it on. Because it's only what you fit on that cart. So if stuff falls off, so you got to watch when you turn the aisle to do it. So I'm just saying, your father's already had that mental conditioning of doing something like that. You give him the box constraint, it's the same thing as that cart. It's got to fit on that cart. And he analyzed it beforehand. What could possibly be on the shelves? What's the highest value item for the smallest size? How can I get and I think you could only get one of each. You couldn't like pile it on.
Damn, you couldn't put 6 TVs on or whatever?
Yeah.
I'd be going for the Costco. I'd be going for the Costco coffins. You ever see those things? They're like $50,000. It's like
yeah, that's true. I don't know if it was limited what they had on those shelves. It's not like they had the toilet paper and the other stuff. They put certain things on the shelves. Right. Oh yeah, that's a good one to ask. And you get the on the podcast.
Yeah, hopefully when you and Dad come down, we can do a 3-man because I got a rig going for the podcast at the couch, which is gonna be pretty cool. I think it'll work really well. So we could do the 3 of us, but the show is really good, but it's kind of tough to watch because obviously I'm not a parent, so I wouldn't know. But like your kid, you can hear him, but he can't hear you. And like this mother, her son's 18, and he's already having a rough first night, right?
Yeah.
And the mom just stayed up all night with him, even though he can't hear her. So she moved her sleep, like every parent gets a sleeping quarters, like as a family.
Yeah.
And she just brought her stuff in, just watched the kid all night. I was like, shit, that would suck. Yeah. And the dad, I was like, oh, he must be so strong. He knows his son's going to get through. He's like, no, I just couldn't deal with the crying. I was like, guys, it's night number 1.
Yeah, right.
And then, so as I said, it's not always parents. It's like sometimes it's their friends and a sister or something. And this one lady gets dropped off, and she's a hairstylist, and it's her best friend and her sister. And the hairstylist cuts to her. She's like, I thought we were going to do this as a group. She's not even down for an hour. She's like already falling apart. And her best friend is just like, she's got an ear thing on. She's like, I knew this was going to be fast, but I didn't think it was going to be this fast. I was like, wow, that's how well your friends know you. So it's a good show. I might watch that. I find that one more interesting than Survivor, honestly.
That's a new one. A new.
They're going to have to change the rules as you go, because the rules have to change.
But also that first night, you don't know what to expect. I know it sucks, but it's going to suck the second, third night too, but at least now you know what it's going to suck and you know it.
Also, the differences are, so it seems like you can't be a legitimate survivalist. Like these are amateur survivalists that go into the woods.
Yeah.
And it's funny because one guy's just a mechanic. He's not even a survivalist. One guy has this great like tree set up with a nice shelter and all that, and he's ready to go. This other guy's just in the dirt like this. That's how he slept with the backpack. He's like, eh. And then, of course, they have to show like the bears and stuff, which we were talking about it. I think in Survivor and all those shows, I'm pretty sure you're a lot safer than the TV show makes you think. Like liability wise, you can't have bears anywhere near these guys. Like for 10 miles, there's a lot of rules. So when you see these moments in these survival shows, like, oh, are they going to die next week? Even on Naked and Afraid, like I found out Naked and Afraid is like completely not true. Like it's not.
I don't know enough about it.
Yeah,
I've seen a couple of shows of that, but even Survivor though, in an emergency they had a medical person there.
Yeah.
If somebody was bitten by something, and they would decide if they were going to pull them out if they were really bad.
Yeah.
So there was always a backup. But you remember Bear Grylls was like that too. Turns out his was a scam.
Yeah, he would just
go in a hotel at night.
Yeah. But also the only time I've ever really seen someone taken off Survivor in a long time, except for like a bad injury, was severe sunburn. Severe sunburn was the only time where they didn't, but that was many seasons. That had to be 10 years ago. So I don't know how much it. Also, there's a lot of new rules to Survivor where now they get like, okay, so I was talking about maybe you and I talked about this, but Survivor used to be, if I remember right, the span of 3 months or something like that. These people would come out so skinny, they lost all this weight. Now it's only 2.5 weeks or something like that, and they get food along the way. There's competitions to get food, which makes it more interesting, but it's not as hard as it used to be, which again, I'd probably be out in the first 5 minutes. The second my feet touches that sand, I'm getting back on that boat going home. Okay. But there's also the idols where you can find them in the woods, and there's these I don't believe for a second that these people are finding these idols just by chance. Some of them are so well hidden, there's no way you're going to find it. So someone's kind of been like, oh, over there's an idol, go check. It's become a little more reality TV, whereas this extraction show just seems super interesting. I'm probably going to watch it all the way through.
I think they should do one with siblings going out as a team.
Oh, Kenny would kill me. Kenny would probably eat me in 2 seconds.
Well, I mean, just in general, you're going to have those brothers that, they work together. They don't even have to talk because they just know how to, Kenny and I would butt heads there. Opposites where one thinks one thing and the other things. But how about the girls? Imagine sisters. Which one who's chopping down the tree and the other one's worried about her beta. I think that would be hysterical. But they're still, they have to work as a team and they're still family.
That would be cool.
That'd be kind of fun.
I would have loved to do, like, I know Mr. Beast does kind of competitions like that. I would love to see a YouTuber, if I was a big YouTuber. I'd love to take. Like, I guess one of my dreams is to do like the Mr. Beast Survival Island, where it's just us, the Discord, and just see who survives the longest. And Vance Sprague talks a good game, but he's out in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah. I thought there was one, I don't know if it's still on, where a husband and wife went out and they had to survive for a certain period of time. I remember Dad drawing me into that one. I think it was like on purpose. He was like testing me to see.
Yeah, is it possible?
He's like, what do you think? Is she being an idiot? I'm like, yeah, she's being an idiot. Yes.
Good job.
Yes. Or Dad's favorite line is, "Listen, in that situation, you just move to the side and let me do it."
Yeah. Well, that's the problem. Like if Kenny, Mike, and I were out in the woods, Mike's good for like if you tell Mike he needs to do something, he'll do it. Whereas Kenny and I think we'd butt heads too much. I think Kenny'd be like, "No, you have to do it this way." I'd be like, "No." It'd be like the freaking tarp on the pool. That's definitely a story we'll have to bring up with Dad on the podcast next time.
Yeah, he'll have an opinion about it. He's not gonna make you guys look good, that's for certain.
Yeah.
Just throw you all under the bus.
Like a crab. Michael, like a crab. Just live. Oh, God. Yeah. Like, okay, I'll tell this one to the viewers real fast. I gotta see if Michael definitely remembers this, but I told this story to my aunt and uncle when Mom was here, and I gotta bring it up to Dad. I
told Dad we were talking about it.
Oh, okay.
I told him that.
So we used to have to pick up, like we would get these huge falls where there's leaves everywhere. And we were at the age where Dad was tired of bending down to do the leaves. So he would get the three of us to come out. And Kenny and I knew what we were doing. Like in the sense of, this wasn't our first rodeo. This is the first time Michael comes out to do it with us. And Dad basically, the way my dad does it is he takes the leaf blower, blows everything to the center to make one big pile. Then we pick it up with rakes or whatever. We'd have to do, you basically take the rake, take your foot, here, I'm going to scoop it on. So Michael had the easier job. Michael got, it looks like 2 trash can lids with teeth on it, right? And Michael would go over, he wouldn't really bend down. He would like kind of do this and he'd get like 3 or 4 leaves. It was like, how the hell is it possible for you to only get like 3 or 4 leaves in this thing? And Dad comes over.
Now you understand your father's frustration.
Yeah, it was tough to watch. And Michael... Dad, Michael's just getting like 1 leaf at a time with this scooper that's made to take like 100 leaves. And Dad finally turns off the leaf blower, and he's already super loud because he has his hearing thing on. So he's like, everyone in the neighborhood can hear. He just goes, he goes, "Michael, like a crab, get your ass down there, scoop him up, and throw him on the top." It was one of the funniest things because Kenny and I are just there, like it was serious because Mike's getting yelled at, but looking back on it, we could laugh at. He's like, "Michael, like a crab." Pick it up, throw it on the tarp. God. Yeah, as Kenny and I are like, "Don't say anything," but that was the funniest. like a crab, just pick it.
I don't know if Mike remembers that. I have to ask.
I hope so. It was so funny. Like a crab.
Probably blanked it out of his mind.
Yeah. I hope so. But Kenny and I are like, oof, like Mike's in trouble. But then looking back on it, just seeing Dad's face going, like a crab.
Sure, he's pissed. He had to shut the machine off. He had to come over and explain.
Yeah, to turn off the choke.
That was pretty freaking basic. How hard is it to figure out? You got to clean the stuff and take it out 1 freaking leaf at a time.
I just remember Kenny and I were like, God. Thank God it's not me. Because we had you scoop up with the rake, put your foot in it, and then kind of do like a shuffle onto the tarp. Where first off you look like an idiot doing it. You look like you look like the retarded Harry Potter student trying to do the Quidditch broom or whatever. And then you got Mike trying to do these. Well, I wish I gotta look them up. Yeah, hold on.
I want you to keep in mind what your dad would be like with extraction. You ain't getting anything.
Exactly. Cut the damn tree down. It's like, Dad. Trash can leaf pickup.
Use the rock
tool.
next to you and break the tree branch.
These things. This is what I'm talking about. These are the things that we had, kind of similar. Yeah, and Mike, this is what Mike was using, and he couldn't like get it.
Yeah, couldn't figure it out.
Yeah.
Pretty sad. It's
okay. Sorry, Mike. Sorry we're ripping on you, but it was funny. You were like 13 at the time, so it's all right.
Was he that old?
Probably. Yeah, I must have been in high school. So.
Jeez.
Well, no, he couldn't have been 13. He was probably 6th grade. If I was a senior.
All right, that's okay. All right, that's a little bit better. 13 is high school.
Like a crab.
8th grade, 9th grade, yeah. Like a crab.
Oh, that's funny.
So anyhow, that gives you a perspective of what Dad would be like on any sort of survival.
Yeah, it's a great. I mean, that show I'm gonna force the guys at Discord to watch it. That's gonna be my new show.
Oh, I told Dad we should watch it on. It's Mondays, right?
No, it's Wednesdays. I
Oh, I
believe.
thought they said Monday Extraction. I thought I saw a commercial for it, but okay. We'll keep an
Well,
eye
we
out
watched
for
it
it.
on a. When was I last at their house? Yeah, it's Wednesday. So,
But you stream
Extraction.
it, right?
Yeah,
You stream it?
Extraction show. Oh, they do spell. Oh, they spell. Wait. Oh, they do spell it like this. When does it come out? One, two. Ooh. Today's what's today? This.
Today's Saturday, the
No,
15th.
no, no. 10th. Hold on. When was the 10th? The 10th. Oh yeah, you're right. It is Mondays. So we
Yeah,
watch it on.
Mondays.
Yeah. So
Yeah, you watch it Wednesdays.
gotcha. Yeah, no, it's good. This is the kid. This is the kid I was talking about. That's the mom that stayed up all night. I was like, oh.
I would probably do that too. I couldn't sleep knowing my
Weak.
kids out in the woods with
Weak
nothing.
with me. Yeah.
I don't sleep when you guys don't get from the airport to your apartment when you go home. I'm up
We're screwed. Maybe we put you out in the woods. The problem is, see, Dad would never extract. We'd be broken down. Dad, please let me go. No, I just want to go home. No.
I told you last time, I don't know if I said it in the podcast. Apologies if I'm repeating myself. We used to call whenever we'd have to get one of you guys from school, like you were sick or something was going on, we'd call it an extraction. Got to go in and get him out. So one of the last ones was for Mike. Probably the second to last one because I did the last one by myself. The second to last one, Dad went with me. I guess we took the dog, or maybe you were around. We drive out there, and at what we get all the way out, it's a 3-hour ride. We left early. We're so close. We've hit a lot of traffic. They're doing construction, and we're down to 2 lanes and 80, and it connects to 90 because they went to Penn State. And it's down to 2. Now the traffic's all backed up for miles. There was an accident, and we were like 2 cars away from the end, and we got screwed. Okay, so we're all packed in. There's no shoulder. Long story short, we're just sitting there. Nothing we can do. I'm driving because your dad was doing work while we were going on his laptop. All of a sudden, we hear like a really loud 18-wheeler horn, leaning on the horn. Honk. So what do you think? I looked at your dad and I go, we are dead. We are going to die right now. Because I assumed one was coming so fast that he was going to, and it sounded so close that he was going to hit all the cars and we were all just going to smash into each other because there's nowhere I can go. You can't, we couldn't even get out of the car in time, to get away from the car.
This brings me back to another memory of when Dad and I were in the, I forget where we were driving to, but Dad managed to stop on a railroad. Do you remember this? Dad stopped on a railroad. We didn't realize it, but I'm talking to Dad here, and the train's coming, right?
No,
but
come on.
I think about it now, and it was so slow. We probably had like a good 5 minutes to move. It wasn't like a fast train, but in the moment, your brain goes, "Oh, you're on a thing," and Dad's like, "Holy shit!" And then we're like, "Go, go, go!" And then realizing, "Oh wait, we had tons of time." Like we had plenty of time, but it was one of those trains where there's no. We were in Pennsylvania, I think, or maybe lower New York, but it didn't have the rails that go down. It didn't have the things. Right. It was kind of those train lines that are right into the track, like the tracks in the pavement, kind of like how it is in New Bern, and you just couldn't see it. And Dad and I are talking to each other, and then, like in movies where the camera the focus changes, where in front to foreground to background. That's kind of what I did as Dad's talking to me, and I see the train coming, and I'm like, oh god, because in a split moment you see it as just something moving. You see it as a stationary object.
It's coming fast when it's far away.
Right.
Yeah.
So Dad and I probably had like 5 minutes before this train even came, but Dad's like, we're on the track. So that's why you just reminded me of that. But we're like, oh my god!
It turned out to be one of the trucks that was coming to move the truck. So it was a tow truck for an 18-wheeler, and the jackass was flying down what tiny bit of shoulder there might have been. There wasn't really any.
Right.
Get the cars to move, but we can't move that fast because there's nowhere to go. Anyhow. But in that instant, I'm just looking at your dad like, well, we're dead. There's nothing we can do. We're about to die here. And that was a horrible experience. So that's the type of extractions we would have. It was either a snowstorm. One time I brought Mike home during a hurricane, right? Tornadoes were in the area as we're driving back. Your father took off in the Honda. We never saw him. And your brother and I were sick as a dog. I think that was back in COVID, his first COVID. We were driving home, and they start talking about tornadoes right where we were driving. It's pitch black out. So I go, Mike, I have no idea if there's a tornado. And you're on these roads in Pennsylvania where there's no sides to them, right? You can't, pull over. They're just highways. So I looked at Mike. I said, "You got to look at the trees. If you see these trees bending over, we're gonna have to pull over and get under the car or something. I can't drive in a tornado. We will
Yeah.
be like, Annie M flying in the Wizard of Oz."
Right.
So that was really scary. And we finally get home. We literally got to our exit, and we were stopped on 287, right by our house, as Chris knows. We were stopped, parking lot, people out of their cars because every road was so backed up from flooding, and we could see our house off the highway. For an hour we sat there, and then finally they let us go, a roundabout way. But yeah, when you say extraction, that's why I laugh when I hear that. I'm like, we've done more than our fair share of extraction.
I don't know if that I don't know if that beats being in British Columbia with nothing, but I know what you mean.
No, yeah, that's a whole different ball game. But
yeah. For
Not
a
too bad,
quarter of
though.
$1 million.
He'll be fine for the night. He can sleep in the woods.
It's the first season, so I'm curious to see how long it goes for. Because if some of these people are going for, so I should also clarify by saying these people don't know who's still going and who's not. So if you're in the woods, you don't know if you're the fifth person left or the third. They don't know unless they find each other. But I don't know if that ever happens.
What do they win? What's it?
$250,000.
Oh, that's a nice amount.
Yeah, $250,000. After taxes, after whatever. Yeah.
Split with mom and dad.
Yeah. Well, oh, you know what's funny? Little side note. Remember those Mr. Beast games?
Yeah.
The Mr. Beast games. So people are right. It's all kids watching it that don't understand how the real world works. So the guy wins the $10 million prize, but he only brings over $5 million because of all the taxes. And people are like, "You said $10 million. Did you lie to us?" It's like, no, it's a game show. So there's taxes, especially if it's on TV. Yeah, it's like, so he only won like 5.7, which boo-hoo, but still a good amount of money for someone who, I don't know if it's an older person or a young kid, but yeah.
All those taxes that we don't know where it goes.
Yeah.
Got to pay those taxes.
Yeah. Well, 37% was federal income tax. So, hey, guy could have gotten almost 10 million if
no income tax. No income tax. Yeah.
What were we just talking about? So yeah, you don't get to know when you're out, which is the hard part. So I'm wondering if this show lasts only 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Because after that, then I think I'd be out.
Yeah, they would. That's kind of tough because you don't know how many people will last.
Yeah. So
your show could be over in a week.
Yeah. Oh, and also what sucks is, like, let's say I could keep going, but you want to go home, you could hit the extraction button. It's like, all that hard work.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. You got to really know going into it.
As I said, like, one of the highlight, how they do the highlight reel of all the dramatic stuff that happens? Yeah. It's that boy that I just showed you, and he's crying for his mom. He's like, "Mom, just press the extraction button, please." And I just think, like, Dad would sit there and watch and go, "Nope." Yeah. Dad would be like, "Nah."
Day one, the kids say
no. It's the highlight from the whole. Yeah. So for all I know, it's 2 weeks and we're not up to that part in the show, but he's like, he's crying for his mom. Like, you can tell he's having a rough time, and the mom looks like she's about to press the button. We don't know if she does or not, but I was like, man, I can't imagine.
Well, the producers might also pick a certain number of people who look like they ain't going to make it also.
Yeah. Well, that's why they purposely don't pick survivalists. Right? You can't be a survivor. You can't have that much of an advantage on people. I think they have to have the basics, but the hair lady, the stylist, no shot. She's done in the first day. I didn't even finish watching the first episode. I knew she was out. So
until you find somebody who's like a cancer survivor and they can do anything, and you don't know that when you interview them. They look like a hairdresser, and you find out, she's been through 10 rounds of chemo, 20 rounds of radiation. She can take on anything, you know.
Back to news. JD Vance blasts Europe. What is this?
That was big news this week.
Yeah, did you watch his Greta Thunberg joke today or whatever?
Yes, and that was part of this whole discussion in Europe. So Vance was touring the Dachau. Was it Dachau? The concentration camp. Then he went to, I think he went to the Vatican with the, no, he was in Notre Dame with his wife and his 3 children. And then he ends it with a speech at the Munich Security Forum, where you got all these elites sitting in the audience who are from all these countries in Europe. And he just basically calls out their canceling of democratic elections recently in Romania, the UK arresting a man for praying outside an abortion clinic, And then he brings up how Russia was buying ad space to influence one of their elections. And his point was, okay, so if a couple $100,000 can topple your democracy, then do you really have that strong a democracy? You know? So he's just calling them all out. They were not happy about it because he ended on a note. And mind you, he was also putting in the terms of, we're having these problems too, but we understand it's a problem and we're fixing it, and you guys, you got to start fixing it, especially when you're relying on us for security and everything else. Because he said, he started his speech by saying, I know I'm here to talk about security, and that's important, but your biggest threat is not from Russia and outside influences. Your biggest threat is from within, and you've brought it on yourself. And he talked about all the migrants, the migration that's going on in all these cities, and how, and literally, after he gave that speech, the same day, I'm not even sure, this person ran a car into all these people in Munich, a Syrian refugee, whatever, immigrant. And so anyhow, they're all still reeling. All these leaders from all these other countries are bad-mouthing J.D. Vance up, down, and sideways. But it was an important speech, and it was really, I loved it because it was, and America's back. We're not perfect. We've made a lot of mistakes too, but we're learning from our mistakes, and we put somebody in, or the citizens put somebody in because they know these mistakes, and now it's time Europe does the same, especially when you're crying to us that we need to do more to help, every problem that's over in Europe. And I think Trump's right. Russia's not our problem. That's your problem over there.
Yeah, I think we're going to end up being the North Star for a lot of countries to come on how to fix a lot of the issues that they're probably going to end up having towards the, excuse me, the UK, yeah, the UK is really struggling right now with the, how do I put this? Muslims? Migrants, I guess. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's getting overrun by what I would consider terrorism when you look at it. Stabbings, people burning Qurans, burning Bibles, everything.
The grooming, the Pakistani grooming.
Yeah, that's
of the young girls. And now they're finding, the prime minister was involved in that. He was a prosecutor, and they want him investigated for allegedly putting it down.
Yeah.
So citizens.
So of all the countries to fall, of all the countries that are probably falling apart right now, you can say what you want about Trump, whatever. England's on its last licks right now. I feel like Europe's really falling apart. So I think to JD Vance's point, even to your point, as you said, we're not perfect, but at least we're starting to uncover the things that should have been uncovered 50 years ago and put a stop to 50 years ago. And hopefully they follow suit. But my question is, how bad does it have to get till you start overturning some of those rocks that Elon's?
Well, I forwarded you also this young, it was captioned, who is this hottie from
think
Greece?
It's this one?
Yeah. She's a young person, right? Probably your age, maybe a little bit older. And she just tears into all of them. I think that was at the UN. Tears into all of them. You have failed. You have failed in running this. The socialism is a failure. And Greece has been traditionally somewhat of a socialist country. And I give her credit. She calls them out. I'm not even sure who she is. I don't even know what role
she's all makeup, though.
Shame. Whatever, but you got to listen to what she says. It's very telling for a young person. There is a resurgence. The conservative movement in Europe right now is ascending because the citizens of these places are tired of it. And as J.D. Vance brought out, the people in the UK, Chris, they didn't vote for this stuff. They didn't vote for the migrants. They didn't vote for any of it. What they did vote for was Brexit. And they're not getting that. They're going in the opposite direction. They wanted to leave the European Union because they didn't want these mandated migrants and requirements with their currency and whatnot. And, they're regressing. And their democracies in many of these countries over there is retreating. Not that we were that much better, but at least we have an opportunity where we're turning around and saying, you know what, as citizens, we've had enough. We had a common sense election, and it was clear cut for a good number of people in this country that we have to go in a new direction.
Right.
And this president's doing it.
So she's 33. She was the founder and leader of Right Political Party, Voice of Reason. She was elected as a member of European Parliament in 2024. So she's kind of brand new. Let's chill.
Very new. Yep. Yeah.
Member of the Greek Parliament. I wish I knew a little more of her background, but yeah.
Well, she's a new face.
She's done a lot for a 33-year-old.
And she's made a name for herself. Obviously, it helps that she was attractive. But what she was saying, somebody paid attention to. And they posted it internationally. She's getting a lot of attention because of it. Because you'd like to think she represents the younger generation who don't want to live like this anymore. You know, they don't want their country. Many, as we've had here, have been shoveled a line of bullshit. Oh, you need the immigrants. Oh, you need these people coming in. Oh, you need it. And, you know, the economy's better because you're being taxed more to pay for them. Horseshit. That's not true. And they've seen this in Europe. It's been going on in Europe even longer than here. And they've been begging since Brexit. That was when Trump first got into office. Europe was saying, the people said, we don't want this anymore. These little quaint towns in England, I mean, I don't think you'd know England anymore. I'm under this impression if you went to that country, you know, it used to be known for its little countryside villages and London and everything else, but to hear them talk, those villages don't look like those quaint UK villages anymore. Similar to us, we have cities in this country now, people who were born in them, they don't recognize them anymore.
Right.
And that's because it's different from when my parents came, my grandparents came, when your great-grandparents. Those were immigrants who came to this country because they wanted to come and they wanted to assimilate. They wanted to have the American dream.
Yeah.
The immigrants coming today, yes, there are some who want that, but they respect the country and they wait in line. The ones flooding over, can't blame them. They're getting freebies. They don't love the country. They love what the country gives them.
Yeah.
Nobody gave the early immigrants anything,
which is a good
thing. Right. They earned it. And it was that, and all they wanted was a chance. Now these people are saying, I want a chance. No, they say they're demanding a chance, and they're demanding money and a safety net because it's been offered to them by our government. And now the citizens, we look like the bad guys. We have to turn around and say, no more. We're not doing it anymore. Yeah. So that's what's going on in Europe. And J.D. Vance called it out. And to his credit, they come yelling at us. They want more. We pay the most for NATO, which is the, you know, security forces over there. You're supposed to pay a portion of your GDP.
And they do nothing. I think NATO is such a joke.
Yeah, and many of these countries make a lot of money in France, in Germany, and they don't even pay what they're supposed to pay in. Yet they're the first ones to say America has to send their troops and send money over. Guess what? We don't have to anymore. Especially as Vance is saying, these are problems of your own making.
Right.
Russia's not your problem.
Speaking of other countries, Mom, what are the odds we buy Canada? What's the percentage on this one?
Buy Canada? I don't know that we'd buy it. I don't know.
Are they going to be the 51st state or whatever?
Oh, I don't know. You know, it was not a big deal to me, I'll be honest. I don't really need to own Canada.
I know. I don't really care that much, I'm going to be honest. I know that there's a lot of resources that Canada has, like oil specifically, but okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I just, obviously they're probably our closest neighbors and allies because of the location, maybe more so than even Mexico. I'd like to see a conservative get into office and see if he could do or she could do a better job of running that country. You know, more freedoms after what we saw with the truckers and the whole COVID nightmare. But my concern is always this. Once you give people a benefit, it's very hard to take it away from them. They're used to socialized medicine up there.
Right.
And I do not want socialized medicine here. I think we have to fix our medical system in this country. I absolutely agree. Let's start with what they're exposing with DOGE, with Medicare and Medicaid fraud. That's enormous. That I'm sure goes on in other countries.
Well, I saw an article today about Elon exposed that some people have been taking Social Security that are 150 years old.
50 years old.
My favorite is the articles that are like, no, that's not true. It's like, am I going to go by you or the guy that's going through all the... Like, it's funny how the second you have someone open it up, they tell you how false it is. So if I'm going to go by someone, I'm probably going to go by Elon rather than a news organization that doesn't have access to any of that information. So how would you know? Well,
that's the point. Somebody's got to prove it. Yeah. Okay, and I won't say this is someone from the Biden telling this. I don't trust it. Yeah. I want facts.
Show it to me.
And the media's supposed to get you facts. They can't just say, though, that's not true. Yeah. Well, why do you not think it's true? How do you know the system better?
Yeah, right? Please. You're a 26-year-old college English grad that you're gonna know better, I'm sure.
Right. Right. Or if you have access to that information and you have somebody that can give you it, show me the proof.
Hold on, what is this? Because I gotta know. 3 fights in 9 seconds. Was there a big fight? Ooh, hockey fight. Do we go for it? Let's just. I'm just curious. 3 fights in 9 seconds.
And another 1 second later.
What is this? A clip of something?
Yeah, it was trending, so that's why I was like, "What is this too?" Yeah.
Jeez, you don't even like hockey.
I don't, but I do like seeing the news.
Fights.
3 fights in 9 seconds.
This is like 1996 when this building opened up.
It's like Slapshot.
Oh, because you know why? Because U.S. and Canada. That was the USA versus Canada. That's funny.
Okay. Oh, we're just talking about that.
Yeah, that's why I was like, oh, works out. But, sorry, that completely derailed what we were talking about. But I saw 3 for 9.
They use socialized medicine, and I don't know. They may love it if we took them over and they had our kind of medicine, but people tend to be like, I don't want to pay for it. I want it faster and better, and I don't want to pay for it. Well, you got to pay for that. That's just how it works. Socialized medicine is that way for a reason. Everybody gets in line. Money talks, shit walks. If you have the money, and we do have other structures for people that don't have money in our country, but it's, like I said, I think there's a lot of things you'd have to iron out. It's just not like, oh, let's just take the people in Canada over or take the country over, make it another state. And I also believe in democracy. I don't want to take you over. I want you to want to have it.
Right.
I do know that when they polled a lot of people, I think a couple weeks ago, I saw it. Many people in Canada like the idea. Just like in Greenland, everybody thinks, oh, you're not taking over Greenland. But when you ask the people, they're not loving, I think, what is it, Norway that controls them? They're not loving the country that controls that.
Well, they say that same thing about Ukraine. Remember when they first did Ukraine? Like most of the Ukrainian citizens were like anti going to war and said, please don't like take us out of Russia. And then, now it's, as you know how it unfolded, it's not great.
1 million dead people later. It's disgusting. Just disgusting. But so I'm not losing sleep over whether we take Canada over or not, or if they join us. It's like anything else. It's up to them if they want to join our democracy and follow our Constitution. But I think a lot more. I think it helps to create sort of a bubbling effect. Because look at Trudeau's on his way out. He doesn't have any hopes of getting reelected. I don't even know if he could.
He already resigned. Remember, he resigned.
Oh, he resigned. Okay. So is he finishing out his term or something?
Yeah, something like that.
Some special
I
thing
asked
going on?
Sprague, and they were like, yeah, well, in reality, he doesn't really make that many decisions anyway, at least not on paper.
Right. So it's more what he represents. So once he goes, he takes his dead party with him, his lame duck party. Yeah, well, it's lame duck, and then you bring in maybe the opportunity for Poilievre or somebody who's more conservative to come in and make us a better partner with Canada, where they don't need to become a state and they work better with us independently and blah, blah, blah. So sometimes, Trump throws things out sometimes because he knows full well, like the Gaza thing we talked about, he's not even going to be around by the time we rebuild Gaza, and we'll have a whole different parliament by the time, or not parliament, whole different Congress by the time that happens. It's just more, he gets people thinking.
What's the difference between a Congress and a parliament?
Well, parliament is what they have in
Canada, England.
They have it in India. They have it in the UK.
Yeah.
Parliament, our Congress is an offshoot of Parliament.
Right.
Parliament is the House of Lords and the House of Commons. So their structure is bicameral, 2 houses. In the UK, they have the House of Lords, which are all the people that own land and it gets passed down. The earls, the lords, the whatnot. That is the equivalent to our senators, if you will. And then they have the House of Commons, where each person elects a member of Parliament, an MP and whatnot, from their district, which is similar to what we have with the House of Representatives. So it's very similar, but the way they operate is different with their prime minister.
I like the way Canada and England do it, where they're all just yelling at each other, going yay and nay. Love that.
Right.
If you know how much I would pay to watch AOC just get booed up there in real time.
It is an interesting way of doing it because you answer in real time. So I always get annoyed with they ask one person, this is what's going on. Then they ask the next person, oh no, those are all lies, right? We've heard that how many times? And then the news moves on. there's no like direct discussion, or very rarely do they confront each other in a debate style. Why are you saying it? Prove that it's wrong. Like, how much crap do we hear from politicians that tell us he's lying, or he's wrong, and they don't back it up. And now I want somebody there with the smarts to back it up. Like when you have a presidential debate, they have that in Parliament all the time, and the Prime Minister goes. I don't know if he's there, she's there every day, but they go and they have to address it. Both sides of the aisle. There's parties behind them, and then they have a moderator. I forget what his name is, but yeah, it's a little bit different. And also, they've had a monarch. It's not a constitutional, well, whatever he is now, but it's a figurehead now. But over the years, the monarch had some influence and whatnot, and can put some influence on the prime minister. We don't have that type of person by design here. We have the president, and that's it. So it's a similar setup, but they work together a little bit differently than what we have here, because we function under a different type of constitution.
Gotcha. I didn't realize like there was an actual difference. I thought it was just the British way of saying Congress.
No, remember they were before us.
Right.
We came from that country, and we set up our government.
I saw a clip of like they call shit like fish and chips. Right?
Yeah.
Someone had a styrofoam thing of French fries with olives in it. Like that was pretty much it. Someone commented the British probably calls this nuts and bolts or some shit. Nuts and bolts.
The weird names. Yeah.
The last one I have is Tuah girl finally comes out of the dark after like 6
more
weeks.
Of her?
Yeah. So she disappeared after the whole scandal, and now she does this comeback podcast where it's like, I'm so sorry. Now here's the problem with this, right? This is where it gets a little dicey, Mom. So it was a podcast that wasn't supposed to get released, and apparently clips of it got released, and it's all clips that make it look like she did nothing wrong, kind of explaining her point.
Right.
It does kind of go to show we were right. Like, I don't think she knew what she was getting into. These people came to her and was like, we got this great idea. And she was told, oh, you'll make money on this. And she just kind of went along with it. Like, no offense to Tuah, but she doesn't have an understanding of crypto to really know how to do a rug pull. This was definitely a PR play just to kind of save whatever's left. But I think her career is pretty much over. It's kind of the rise and fall of this girl needs to be studied.
Let's put career in parentheses. I mean,
she made her podcast does well, and then it just started not doing well. Because it started off with a big guest, and then it just kind of got like the guests just got worse and worse as time went on. So. It was a good 3-month career, however long it's been.
Unlike us, we operate at a high level.
Yeah, we set the bar low so that when a guest does come on, it does really well. Yeah, the hard part is always just to start. Yeah, the hard part is when Ken and Mike are on, it always does well. But and I don't really pay attention to the Spotify numbers. I know the Spotify numbers are good, but. They don't. Spotify does a bad job at actually telling you what your stats are.
Well, I have to tell you, Mr. G, he's primed, because he brought to the Super Bowl his whole Tesla conspiracy theories. How Tesla actually found a way to generate electricity.
Oh, Nikola Tesla. Oh.
Yeah. Tesla,
Mom, you got to stop talking. This is how you get taken off the internet.
Well.
Yeah, the idea of using.
Allegedly. He's had the ability to generate electricity. You didn't need power plants or anything. Right.
Did he tell you? So Nikola Tesla, for those, I'll go down the rabbit hole because Mr. Greta and I we're on just different playing fields than everyone else. So Nikola Tesla, arguably the smartest person to ever lived, maybe Da Vinci. He was able to use the Earth's centrifugal force to make electricity. And they think that was the reason why he died, because all the electrical companies that were starting at that time realized that if this guy can do this, we won't need to tax people. We won't have to make people pay for it. So,
yes, and apparently Mr. Greta said that everything, all his work was taken away.
Yeah, burned. His house was burned down, I believe.
Yeah, we could find any information. So that's his new thing. So Dad primed him. He says, "Hey, you're ready for another podcast."
Yeah, he's always ready to. I'm always down to have him, but I don't know if he'd want to do it through Discord. We'd have to have him in person, I think. But
yeah, he's better in person, and they've been really busy. But having said that, I'm like, oh boy, we got the guest is getting primed back by popular demand.
Yeah, Mr. yeah.
Okay, he's back on the pyramids again. The comment was, and I quote, "They built all these pyramids for the pharaohs, but yet when they opened some of them up, there were no pharaoh bodies in there. Why?"
Because there's hidden chambers and whatnot. That's been proven. But yeah, well, I still think the biggest wonder is how the pyramids were built. Not to go down the rabbit hole again, since we're already an hour and a half in. Yeah. But right when you look at each of those, we have machines that can move. I forget how they did it, but they tried getting. What was the easiest way to get rocks this big from one place to another? So they basically had to take these semi trucks and put almost like a flatbed all the way across. It was I don't know how many yards it was, but it was way more than average.
Well, we did on the show, somebody had a theory, and I don't know, it's been disproven by some archaeologists that they had waterways around the pyramids and they would float it down. Possible, but now some archaeologists saying no, it didn't happen. Can't prove that.
So they tried doing it on this flat truck bed that I was telling you about, and they struggled with 15-ton rocks. Each one of those rocks is 30 tons. So there's no it's never going to be solved. It makes me lead more to giants or alien. Like it had to be. It does. If we can't humanly do it today and have these rocks perfectly cut and have this thing pointing to perfect north, that's not coincidence. So yeah,
there was some other structure we were watching, another part of the world, some ancient structure. I forget. I was watching it with Dad. That's like perfectly. The stones are just perfectly lined up. How did they even do that in the jungle then? Mrs. G was on that kick of.
Oh no, is she falling?
Hers is 9/11.
Oh,
but there were explosives in the building.
Yeah, I think we know all those now.
Yeah, you might have gone through that with Mr. G, the security company.
We did
the
do
same
that
one that George Bush's family.
Yeah, his cousin was head of security there or something like that.
Or the company's the same company he uses, blah, blah, blah.
Inside, like when people say inside job, I don't really know if I would say that, but there's definitely people here in America that knew about it. I mean, the guy that owned the buildings took out some crazy insurance policy a month before that made no sense. Everyone was like, you're crazy. And then the buildings go down and they becomes a multi-hundred billionaire or whatever.
Well, and there's a lot of people who were supposed to be there that day happened not to be there working that day. I mean, there's a lot of...
look at the put options on the aircraft company, the airline company. Right. Like most put options on a stock ever or something like that. So people knew. Right. People knew it was coming. No one said anything. But Mr. Greta also talked about the time traveler, right? Dad told me that. I don't know if you...
Yes. Yep.
That one's an interesting one. I've heard of this one, and it's actually true. Ready? So I was telling Dad, you can look this up. When New York City was built, you know what a menorah is? I'm sure you know. It's the thing that... So around... This is true. You can look this up. Fact check me, though. There's a menorah that goes all around New York City. It's a rope that goes all around New York City, like old New York City when it was built. And basically the concept was it was supposed to like keep out bad spirits from New York City. You look it up. Like there's actually a wire that they put in many years ago that is blessed by whatever. I don't know the faith very well, but it goes all around New York City. It's still there to this day.
Okay.
And the concept was, again, I don't know how true it is, but it has some kind of spiritual energy. And then that time traveler that Mr. Greta was talking about, they channeled this energy through a factory, and that's how this guy was able to travel through time. Now, I know some of you were like, oh, that's a cool story. If you look it up, that shit goes deep.
Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff.
T-shirts on that have the whole and whatnot.
When you look at the guys at the assassination of JFK, that's like, oh, this guy's way not supposed to be there, and why is there an iPhone? You go,
But I don't know if that's picture editing. Even back then, somebody might have been able to do
it's possible,
sort of
but listen, I always promote this guy. Watch the Y Files. The Y Files guy is by far one of the best YouTube channels out there. I love watching his stuff. He has like 1 45-minute video a week. It's worth watching. It's kind of like a podcast, and he gives you this is what I don't like about him though. And I told you this one. I told Dad this. So he has one on Apollo 19. He's got a video on Apollo 19, which is the story of when it was like the hidden mission.
Yeah.
Where Russia and the United States worked together to go to Mars, and apparently we did it. And he's telling this whole story. He's got all this information. And then you called me, and I'm telling you, I'm like, Ma, you got to hear this story. It's wild what they found. I hang out with you after like an hour conversation. And then I finished the episode. He goes, this is actually all based on a movie that was written by the guy who took all this. I was like, you son of a bitch. Why wouldn't you tell me that at the beginning? Why couldn't you do this? So that's how he does it. He gives you all the information, and he tells you what's right and what's wrong, and if he believes it or not, like if this is true. Most of them he does believe, even though he says he's not a conspiracy theorist. But when he looks at all the information, he goes, oh, okay, there is something here. So there's some really cool ones. So strongly recommend the Y-Files.
All right, we might have to do that on the trip down. Dad's always looking for podcasts.
Oh, you can watch them all the time.
Good.
They're always a little better when you watch them rather than because they have pictures and stuff. Because he'll show you videos of. So there's one of the guy that originally found the cure to cancer by using vibrations and certain sound frequencies to destroy blastomas. He actually has the machine. It's a picture of the machine. Then he goes through how the FDA basically shut him down, had him assassinated. All this stuff. It's pretty wild. Unfortunately, that's what mostly happens with a lot of the medical stuff.
Who knows what's coming out of that HHS with Mr. Kennedy now?
Yeah,
who knows?
I love all the memes right now of people kicking down doors, and it's Robert Kennedy Jr. trying to clean out people's kitchens. It's funny. There's some good ones out there. But all right, Mom, we just did an hour and a half. So. What to promote? I mean, obviously, go watch the Y-Files. Go watch Extraction. Those are the big ones. Only things I have to promote, obviously, last week's podcast, speed run for Only Up Lizards Must Fall. Go check that out. And then today I posted a video on backyard boxing, which was fun. So check those out. Social media, promo codes, stream links, Discord down below. And we will see you guys hopefully next weekend for the live podcast. So, later.
Sounds good.